friends, welcome to my channel and to day 20 of Spellbinders Crafty Advent Calendar. I hope that you're enjoying all of these crafty surprises as much as I am. And today's is a wonderful 3-piece stencil set. I love this sweet design of overlapping circles. So much fun to play with. Well, I've decided to make another shaker. This time I'm going to have a vellum window rather than acetate. I thought this frosty look would look perfect with that Yeti. What about those red circles? I think that might have been inspired by my nails. The vellum window measures 3.5 by 4.25 inches. It's a little bit larger than the stencil, so I'm first applying the ink to the top portion of the vellum and then moving the stencil down to get the remaining piece. I'm working with fresh dye inks and I'm starting off with my lightest shade of red, which is called Rouge. And now I'm going to move on to my mid-tone, which is called Crimson. And as you may have noticed, I started off stenciling directly on my work surface. That was a mistake. And so I quickly got my panel onto a sticky mat so it's nice and secure. These circles overlap, which is why I'm working from lightest to darkest. When the stencil is laid on the panel and when it's moved from the top to the bottom, I am being quite careful, and you may have noticed that I'm using my craft pick to lift it up when I want to remove it. When ink is applied to vellum, you'll notice that it looks shiny. It looks shiny because it's wet and it can smear. And right now I'm applying my darkest ink to the third stencil. This one is called Velvet. And when I'm finished stenciling, I actually set this panel aside to dry overnight. I'm going to be incorporating a really super sweet die set, Rocky the Dancing Yeti, but this time he's not going to be dancing. His body and limbs have been die cut from white cardstock and the accents from soft gray. The die cut circle in the gray belly has been centered over the X belly button, and there are some etched lines to line up the face. Touch of glue is added to the base of the horns, and then those are adhered to either side at the top of the head. Next, I'll adhere those little furry hands to the ends of the arms. The legs have a circle die cut which can be used to create an interactive element, which I am not doing for this card. So I'll adhere the body directly over top of it and then adhere the feet to the underside of the legs. This Dancing Yeti comes with a number of accessories. For this card, I'm going to be using the earmuffs. So I've attached the band. The band has end points, and so I'll go ahead and attach the earmuffs centered on those end points on either side of the head. This Yeti's going to be wearing a scarf, and I've attached the main part of the scarf to the tail and then adhered it, slipping it underneath the bottom of the earmuffs. My adhesive is still wet, so I'm able to slip the arms underneath either side of the scarf. And then the Yeti is finished up with the eye detail. The frame for the shaker was cut from one of the dies included in the A2 Matting Basics. I started off with a white panel that measured 4 inches by 5.25 inches, just slightly smaller than an A2 size. This is going to be the shaker window, and I'm placing double-sided tape around all 4 sides of this frame. Then I'll go ahead and remove all of the backing paper. Vellum panel, which was left to dry overnight, is placed face down over this window. I'm using the double-sided adhesive because I don't want anything wet to come in contact with the vellum because it will cause it to ripple. I'm going to be placing a foam frame on top, so I place another round of double-sided adhesive on all 4 sides. Another option would be to use Tombow adhesive in place of the double-sided tape, allowing it to dry until it's in its tacky state. But for this project, I found that the double-sided tape was quickest. The sheet foam was die cut with the same die that was used to cut the window. Backing paper has been removed, and now the foam frame can be lined up to the back of the cardstock one. Double-sided tape can be a little bit unforgiving, but I find with the foam there is a little bit of wiggle room. To line up the panel on the back of the shaker, I've placed the window face down inside my MISTI with the foam insert removed. Next, I'll add my shaker material. I wasn't too particular because it's really not going to be that visible through the vellum. It's just going to have this really nice shaking sound. I've added in some silver stars, and now I'm using my liquid adhesive and applying it all the way around the foam. When the panel is adhered to the back of the shaker, I tip it upwards into the corner and then lay it down, pressing it into place. And there we go. It is perfectly aligned. And I'll just place my MISTI on top of the panel and let that dry for a few minutes. The sentiment will sit on the vellum window. I'm applying Tombow adhesive to the back of those die cuts, and I'll give them a few minutes to dry. And in the meantime, I'll take my shaker, which is a little bit smaller than the A2 size card base, and center it on it. The Yeti will be mounted on the bottom right-hand corner of the shaker with foam squares. Tombow adhesive is now dry on the die cut words, and I can go ahead and adhere those to the vellum windows. Not only do I love this adhesive in its dry state because it is safe to use with vellum and won't cause it to wrinkle, I also love that it is repositionable, so I can fiddle around with this sentiment until I get it just right. Now that I have Christmas on straight, I'll take the word Merry and center it right above it. And again, I'm able to play around with those letters and not have to worry about glue residue. I'm going to be adding in a whole bunch of icy blue confetti. And yes, I have gone back to my regular adhesive. I find that if it is a little tiny dot, it isn't going to impact the vellum adversely. And as I'm apt to do, I'm going to finish up all of that confetti with Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew. I just can't even resist. I want the scarf to stand apart from the earmuffs, so I'll add in some tiny dots with Nouveau Crystal Drops Simply White. Before I begin applying it, I first make sure that the medium is inside the nozzle and I apply minimal pressure to the bottle. And that wraps up this fun and festive shaker featuring Spellbinders Day 20 of the Crafty Advent Calendar. I have another fun card for Day 21 and I hope you'll join me. As always, I appreciate your visit.